Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli with Little Blue, and we are of course starting off reviewing Season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Woo!
Yes! So it's finally here.
Finally here.
We are of course, that's right, we are actually reviewing both episodes 1 and 2, or that is chapters 9 and 10. I've done this actually, I did this before with Lower Decks. I reviewed the first two episodes in one video, and now, you and I were doing this with Mandalorian with chapters 9 and 10. So, the first two episodes of Season 2.
Chapter 9, the Marshal, and Chapter 10, the Passenger.
The Passenger, that's right. So, Of course, we're starting off with Chapter 9. So, what about Chapter 9?
Chapter 9 is, out of all the chapters so far, this is my favorite one, my second favorite. Well, I know how you said it. I'll say it this way.
I said this.
My favorite
episode.
episode.
I've been telling you this off camera when we're not doing videos, and I know I've mentioned that in a couple of vlogs I did. So
all right,
go ahead.
Season 1 favorite standout episode
Chapter
was
4.
Sanctuary. Chapter 4.
Sanctuary.
So far, the first episode, or Chapter 9, first episode of Season 2, is my favorite, the Marshal, so far.
Right. See, and that could be Chapter 4 can be your favorite episode from Season 1, while Chapter 9 can be your favorite episode of Season 2.
Well, Chapter 9 is more like a space western, more than any other Star Wars movie or episode of The Mandalorian I've ever seen.
Right.
It is.
I mean, the entire show is supposed to be kind of like a Star Wars version of a western. So
sure, but Timothy Oliphant, he really made that episode.
Yeah. It was cool seeing him in Star Wars.
Yeah, it really was.
He was a perfect fit.
He was a perfect fit. But you see Mando going into a really an unnamed city with the kid going in and
at the beginning of the episode.
With this kind of dark sleazy guy who's
this one-eyed alien.
Yeah, he's a gangster type,
and he's voiced by John Leguizamo.
Right, and
let me just say this because. This is true, and I couldn't, you know what, it's a weird coincidence, because before Season 2 started, I was kind of saying this, that it would be cool, because John Leguizamo had worked with Jon Favreau before in the movie Chef.
Mm-hmm.
So he co-starred alongside with Jon Favreau in The Chef, and there have been many people that have worked with Jon Favreau, and some of them have also appeared in The Mandalorian.
Right.
So I was thinking, this popped in my head. This was before Season 2 started. I was thinking, would it be cool if John Leguizamo, he was in The Mandalorian and he played some part, like say a pirate or something. Just he would kind of help and such. I guess the good guys or whatever. He'd be something like say Hondo Ohnaka. So
yeah.
And wouldn't you know it? He is in The Mandalorian and he's the voice of that one-eyed alien.
Yep.
That's insane. So in some ways, did I predict it, or just what do you think?
Well, it was really cool how when he first goes in there and tries to negotiate with him to try and find it, because he was told that he would be able to tell him where the Mandalorians were, because he's trying to find where the Mandalorians are hidden so he can go there and try and reconnect, because he's been quested with finding take the kid back to his people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to say the child, but okay, the child. And I hate Baby Yoda because he is not Baby Yoda.
He is not Baby Yoda.
He's the same species, but I don't think we're going to find that he is in any way related to Yoda.
And that's what I've been saying.
But you see, he makes good use of the whistling birds,
right,
and takes out all these thugs that are getting ready to take him down if he doesn't give up his Beskar armor.
I noticed one of them, I noticed what the alien species with the long tentacles are. One of them, that one being played by what's his face, who's in Pirates of the Caribbean. He was one of Barbossa's crew.
Yeah, I remember, and I can't remember his name though.
Yeah, me neither. But he was also, and he also he played one of the apes, the gorillas in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Okay, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't have been able to tell that. Right. But so Mando gets the information. Won't give too much away, but he finds himself on Tatooine.
Well, I think they would have seen episode 1 by now. So
yeah. Well, he finds himself on Tatooine.
Chapter 9. Sorry.
I'm just trying to abbreviate it a little bit and move it along.
Yeah.
But he finds himself on Tatooine.
We're reviewing.
He's trying to find
we're doing chapter 9 and 10. So
he's trying to find a city called Mos Espa, which is not even showing up on the maps, and finds Mos Espa, finds the Marshal there, who's played by Timothy Oliphant.
Right.
Lo and behold, he is wearing none other than Boba Fett's armor.
Yeah.
And says he bought it off some Jawas.
And there's a backstory.
There was a good backstory to it.
And the backstory begins right as, because when the Empire was defeated and the second Death Star was blown up.
Right.
And we see that on holographics.
Right.
Which that's cool.
So Mando long story short, this Krayt Dragon appears.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
that's terrorized this settlement for years. And so he strikes a deal. He says, "I'll give you back the armor," because Mando says, "I got to have the armor because it belongs to the Mandalorians." And he's not a Mandalorian, clearly, because he takes the helmet off, and Mando sees instantly he is not clearly a Mandalorian.
Right.
So, in order to get the armor back, he agrees to dispatch the Krayt Dragon.
And the Krayt Dragon, because are you familiar with that? The Krayt Dragon?
I know it comes. Its origins are from the the Knights of the Old Republic.
But it's also a nod. This could also be a nod because with the Tusken Raiders, a nod to say the original release of Star Wars when Obi-Wan made that sound.
Right.
When he helping saving Luke and scaring off the Tusken Raiders.
Exactly.
That, yeah. So right there.
Well,
so.
there's a story I read about Obi-Wan having killed a Krayt Dragon, and I don't know where that story comes from exactly. It's probably in one of the Star Wars novels that I haven't read, but there's also speculation that the skeleton you see, the skeletal remains you see on Tatooine from Episode 4,
when 3PO is walking, that malfunctioning twerp.
When he's walking along, you see that skeleton in the background. I don't think that's a Krayt Dragon because it's way too small. If it is, it's got to be an infant.
I think I did look up to see what that was.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Krayt Dragon.
And it's not. No, it's
way too small.
It's something else, and it's not it. I know I did look that up at one point, so of what the skeleton is. So
right, if it were a Krayt Dragon, its skull would be twice the size of the escape pod that 3PO and R2 landed on Tatooine.
Right.
So no way that's a Krayt Dragon.
Yeah.
But finally at the end, of course, Mando does kill the Krayt Dragon.
And you know what's cool?
Very creative way.
You know what's cool? The Tusken Raiders, they form an alliance with the people of Tatooine and Din Djarin.
This is the appeal to me of this episode. This is what appealed to me so much in this episode, because if you look at it, if you step back and you look at it in comparison, it's almost a
right.
It's almost an abstract of the American Old West and the Indians and the cowboys coming together, or the settlers in the town, because the Tuscans come riding into town,
right,
and the settlers are looking at them like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're actually coming here," which would have been very much like probably settlers in the Old West, and maybe the Apache Indians,
right,
or any other Indian tribe that they were, they hated.
Oh yeah.
Because of constant battles and wars.
Oh yeah.
So they've already got it in for the Tuscans because they've raided their village, and the Tuscans have it in for them because they've killed several of their people.
Right.
But in order to destroy this threat, which is this Krayt Dragon that could swallow any of them whole at any given moment, they come together, they put aside their differences, and they work together, and they kill the Krayt Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that was very much, it was very much like how you would picture the Old West, settlers and Indians coming together to, maybe to kill a grizzly bear. I don't know. I'm using that as an analogy, but
I don't think I've seen any other of the Star Wars YouTubers, them talking about this kind of stuff of Western and what you're saying.
Well, it's been compared, Mandalorian's been compared to a Western and a samurai movie. In fact, Jon Favreau has mentioned that, and there was, I can't remember now who it was that was coming on board, but he told him if it was one of the actors or if it was one of the directors, but he told him, he said, I think it was one of the actors, he was told to watch watch Clint Eastwood, and then watch, there was a particular, I don't think it was Bruce Lee, but it was whatever popular classic samurai movie there is.
Clint Eastwood, you can also do John Wayne.
But especially Clint Eastwood, because Mandalorian's got that cape. Yeah. He's got this that's very much like the Clint Eastwood,
Clint Eastwood had that kind of thing too.
The cape that he wears, which is it's not a cape. Can't remember the name of it now.
Completely
escaped me. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
You've seen it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
they've seen it. They know what it is. They know what it is.
Yeah.
Poncho. Thank you. Poncho. It's called a poncho. In this case, he's wearing a cape. Clint Eastwood's character wears the hat with the brim pulled down low and the poncho. And that's the look. That's the look.
Right.
You see very little of Clint Eastwood. He's
Right.
covered by a poncho and a hat with the brim pulled low.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's episode 9.
But we're forgetting one thing at the
What?
end. Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. When that camera pans across and shows Mando riding on the speeder, going across the desert floor of Tatooine, the camera pans right to left, and you know what's coming.
You knew it was coming. We knew it was coming.
And there stands
because of that shot.
There stands Boba Fett with a looks like a pulse rifle,
Like a
and
Tusken Raider weapon
and a gaffy stick.
from the
a
Tusken
Tusken
Raider.
gaffy stick.
Yeah, Tusken Raider.
Yeah. And that is, and he turns around and he walks toward the camera and walks by the camera, and it is clearly Boba Fett.
Of course it is, yeah. But I mean, Tamir Morrison is credited, of course, but Boba Fett is not also credited, you know?
No.
It's just Tamir Morrison's name in there.
Yeah.
But you know, and I know this will happen. I want to, Boba Fett will have to, there'll be a standoff or something between Din Djarin and Boba Fett come face to face with one another.
Exactly.
Because he clearly because he saw Din Djarin, and the armor was clearly seen.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
I feel we know what could come, and maybe later this season.
So before we move on to episode 10, what did you think of episode 9?
It was good, of course.
Very good.
What do I have to say about it? Episode 9 is good.
2 thumbs way up.
2 thumbs way up. Yep. Now we come to chapter 10, the passenger.
The passenger,
And
which
there's-
was very interesting.
There's one thing we forgot to mention. What's her face? On Tatooine, because she was in chapter 9 and
Yeah, does
also
her character have a name?
Yeah, she does, but I can't remember.
I can't remember it either. But she's
No,
very
but I
good.
love her character. It's good.
Yeah.
It's great to see.
What's
more.
the actress's name? Amy. What is it?
Amy. Well, her first name's Amy. I can't remember her last name either.
Yeah,
Ugh.
but she's very good. And
Yeah.
it's
I'm glad we're seeing more of her character because
Chapter 10.
I love her character.
chapter 10 started exactly the way I thought it would, because as he's riding off,
Still,
I thought, okay,
we pick up where he's still on the speeder.
exactly, and I'm thinking, okay, they could start it off with him in space or somewhere else, but no, they picked it up, and I'm wondering if they're not going to do this with every episode, if they're not going to pick up at the end of the last episode, because
Yeah.
when we get to when we start on chapter 10 here, start talking about that. Chapter 10, when you see, clearly ends. It's a two-parter, clearly a two-parter.
Yeah.
Or just a continuation of the story. And so far, everything has been a continuation of the story.
Yeah, it has.
Chapter 9 and Chapter 10. But all of them together, even in Season 1. It's just that in Season 1, we would see a beginning, we would see a completely different scene. He would be in a completely different scenario. Maybe it would be a day later or 2 days later, but it would still be in chronological order. It wouldn't
Right.
be, this seems to be going in chronological order. It's picking up chapter 10 picks up where the end of chapter 9 left off. Like you said, he's riding across the desert in the speeder.
Yeah.
He gets ambushed.
Yeah.
They wreck the speeder. He gets out of it. He fights off 5 guys.
And that one part where he offers his jetpack,
Yep.
But he sets it off, letting that
I knew it was gonna happen.
that guy fall to his death.
I know when the guy says, when the creature says,
There's no way Din Djarin would let him take that.
when the creature
None of this
points
stuff.
to the rising phoenix, he's like, okay, he gives it to him. He says, just take it, just leave the child. And he takes it, and I said, well, it's pretty obvious what's coming. He picks up the kid to make sure the kid's okay. On his little control panel on his wrist, on his arm, and the thing takes off, and of course the rising phoenix goes one way and the creature goes flying the other, falls to his death,
Right.
and then Mando by remote control brings the rising phoenix right back down at his feet.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
That was cool.
That was cool. Little alien got what he deserved.
Yep.
And then he gets back to town. He hooks back up with the one that runs Hangar 21.
Right. What's her face? Yeah.
And
We see her again in this episode.
and so she hooks him up with someone who can supposedly tell him where he can find Mandalorians. In fact, he ends up taking her as a passenger. This
Frog lady.
frog creature,
This female frog.
female frog creature.
Yeah, and
We'll say amphibian, but he calls her frog.
And actually, because the body, like the actress who was is the body for the frog female creatures, also was the body for Queel,
Yeah, exactly.
And you have T. Bradley Baker making the frog noises, who voiced the clones.
Yeah, I didn't think Nick Nolte was Queel. I didn't think he was actually in that costume.
He did the
He's
voice.
a little taller than that.
Duh, he voiced him. So,
but it was really funny how the actress that plays
can speak the language.
Lady that runs Hangar 21
that can speak the language,
and she's talking to the frog lady.
And that's the only language Din Djarin cannot understand,
Apparently, because he can speak Tuscan,
And he can speak others,
Yeah, he can speak others.
Like he spoke like that, like he calmed down those creatures, like those dog-like creatures,
Well, I think he was speaking Tuscan then. Those were those lizard creatures that were they're like dogs.
They look like they have a bit of spikes to them or something.
Yeah, they were. He calmed them down, and he was speaking Tuscan language. So
right, okay.
In fact, he was almost making the sound that Obi-Wan was making in Episode 4 when he was scaring off the Tuscans. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
But Episode 10, when he picks up the passenger, and the passenger has eggs. The passenger has to get to her home planet to get the eggs fertilized by her husband.
Yep.
I don't exactly know how this works out, but she has
I don't think even Din Djarin knows either.
She has to take the eggs. Of course, the kid has eyed the eggs, and I've actually read there are some Disney fans that are grumbling about the fact that the kid was eating the eggs.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, okay, I think being a little too sensitive here,
Well, what can you say, because he's a freaking child, so
And the creature obviously,
even though he's like
even
though he's like 500 years old, whatever, he's still a child, so he's young. So what can you do?
Well, he's 50 years old in this.
Yeah, but it's like, what can you do? He still acts like a child. Well, he's a child. What can you do?
Yeah, he is a child. He may not talk. He may not even be able to speak for another 50 years. So who knows? He may go through this whole series and never ever utter a word.
No.
We do know he's making these little chirp noises like.
Yeah,
when
he's made the baby sounds before.
Kind of cute, but he's communicating. You see this in Episode 10 when Mando takes the frog creature with her eggs and taking her to this planet, which is in the next sector over. He has to fly sublight because if he moves to light speed, it will kill the eggs. So he has to travel sublight, and he doesn't want to do this because he says that's really the only way he can avoid capture. Of course, he ends up getting caught by the two X-Wings. They're out on patrol. A New Republic patrol's out. Two X-Wings. Dave Filoni is one of the pilots.
Once again, we see him again as the X-Wing pilot. I named Tapper Wolf. That's the name of his X-Wing. That's the name of his character, the X-Wing pilot.
They're going to force Mando to land, basically. Mando takes off, runs from him, flies into the atmosphere of this planet.
Yep.
And
this ice planet
to try and lose him, and he loses him in the clouds at first. Then he does a dive and goes into this canyon, and then without knowing the terrain or anything, he ends up flying into a cavern and loses control, crashes, and it goes through an ice floor.
Right.
So now he's grounded with this amphibian creature, this frog lady, and these eggs,
and with the child, yeah.
And the child we see is definitely taken a liking to the eggs because he's already sneaked and eaten like several of them so far. This poor lady's not going to have any babies left. And but what we see is when he goes out to start to work on the Razor Crest, the kid. This is the point I was going to make. The kid is standing there, and he says, "Hey kid, why don't you come over here and make yourself useful and give me a hand?" And the kid just turns around and walks behind the ship. He's like, "Hey, I'm talking to you."
Well, I think the child was trying to tell him something because he was pointing.
He is, and that's the whole point.
He was pointing.
He's learning to communicate. He's learning to communicate with him without any kind of language. He's using sign language, and he's using body language to communicate with Mando.
Right.
We see that really for the first time in this episode. And that was kind of exciting to me because you say, so he can communicate. He's obviously intelligent.
Yeah.
But you see how intelligent he is and how he understands what Mando's saying. He just doesn't know how to speak.
Yeah.
And because at one point when the frog creature, the amphibian creature, when she she challenges Mando. She hooks up Zero.
Yeah,
we don't even know that he has Zero left in. We didn't even know Zero was still in the ship. But apparently, when he blows it,
I was going to bring up Zero.
When he blasts him, he has him on board. So the amphibian can't communicate with Mando. Has to get her eggs.
And Din Djarin can't speak her language.
No. So she sees Zero. She figures out how to hotwire it to get it to use its translator.
Yeah, and even Din Djarin, like, he points his gun at it, and, like, remember, like, he's saying that thing that's a dangerous machine. I'm just like, oh my gosh, Din Djarin, again with this? Get a grip.
Exactly.
Do you not see what the frog lady's doing?
So she tells him.
It's just like in season 1, like, Din Djarin couldn't get the point when, Kuiil was clearly telling him that he reprogrammed IG-11, so.
It's like, is this the code of the man? She's telling him in the translation through Zero's voice. Is this the code of the Mandalorian? Or is it just stories for children? And you see the kid look at Mando, and you can tell that he understands what she's saying, because he's looking at Mando like, well, is it just a child story, or are you really, as honorable as you're supposed to be, as they say you are? So then he goes out and he starts the repairs. But that whole communications thing you're starting to see develop between Mando and the kid is what's so fascinating to watch,
right,
and how it's developing.
Right.
And then of course they go into a cavern. They find the amphibian creature, the frog lady, in a hot springs, and she's got her eggs in there, keeping them warm, and she's warming up herself, And then Mando's like, "You've got to come back to the ship. I can't protect you out here. I have to have you on the ship in order to protect you."
I don't think Din Djarin got the point what she was doing.
And I think he did, but I think he was trying to make her realize, I can't protect you when you are in here. You have to be on the ship.
Okay.
So he gets her back to the ship. He's in the process of getting her back to the ship. Meanwhile, the kid who's tried to steal another egg and Mando stops him, he looks over and sees another food source, which happens to be eggs. And these eggs are eerily similar to those. They're a lot smaller, but it really reminds you of Alien. Because it's the way the thing comes open. The child opens one up, and you see this bony thing in there, which is a spider, basically.
Right.
An unborn spider, and he eats the child eats the spider. The other eggs start to hatch, and the baby's standing there, kind of in distress, and Mando can tell. He hears him, he looks up, and he's running back to him, and you see these spidery creatures coming out of these eggs, and then you see more spidery creatures coming out of the cavern, and then you see one big pissed off mama coming out and coming after all of them.
And these spider creatures, they were in Star Wars before. They first appeared in I can't remember if say they were in the comics, but they were definitely, I remember they were in Star Wars Rebels.
Yep.
Yeah, like Ezra and Kanan, they came face to face with them. So
long story short.
So there you go.
They flee back to the ship. They barely escape with their lives. Mando uses his blaster and finally uses his flamethrower on his arm. Arm
and those little spider creatures, they were coming up to the child, and that's when the frog lady, she used the blaster to help to save the child.
Yeah, because there's one on the child's head, and he's like, and you don't know if the thing's going to bite it or try and eat it, and all of a sudden, it gets obliterated, and the
frog lady helps.
The frog lady is holding the blaster, and killed 3 or 4 of them actually that were around the child. So, it's when it looks like it's absolutely at its darkest moment, and things are not, and they're going to get obliterated by these spiders because they're trying to get away, and the biggest of the big ones comes in.
The big one comes on top of the ship.
On top of the Razor Crest, and pushes it back down to the ground. And then you start hearing blaster fire.
It's the X-Wing pilots.
And as soon as you hear the blaster fire, okay, the X-Wing guys are back.
Mm-hmm.
And they've landed, and they're outside their cockpit with blaster rifles, and they're picking those things off. Mando comes out. They say, "We know who you are. We know what you did. We know," and referring back to Episode 6 of Season 1. But they also know from security footage that he put his own life at risk to save the life of this Republican guard, who was this New Republic guard who was on that prison ship.
Right, Matt Lantern played.
Exactly. And so they knew that, and they also knew that Mando put the three that he was in league with, put them behind bars, and they were all
So
three
they know
wanted.
what he's like now.
So they know he's an honorable guy. So then he just looks at him and says, "Am I under arrest?" And they said, "You should be, but these are extraordinary times." So they let him go. And he says, "How about helping me fuse my hull? He says, "How about I forego the bounty on the 3 that I helped you capture, and you guys fuse my hull?" And he says, "How about you get a transponder, and how about we don't vaporize that antique the next time it's in our sector?"
Right.
Which was pretty funny. And they left him. They saved their lives, but they didn't help him with his ship repairs. They took off and they left him.
Well, then Joran could fix it himself.
He gets the ship. He gets the ship.
Easy peasy.
He gets, but remember, it's still
Still a bit damaged.
It's still damaged. He can only pressurize the cockpit, and the whole cabin area is useless right now to fly in space because you can't get it because it's unsealed, and it's even got gaping holes in it. So he's going to have to limp it somewhere and have some serious repairs done for it, which is probably going to lead him to another job, another adventure where he's going to have to get more money in order to pay for the ship repairs.
Yeah, now that you just say that, maybe that's what will happen for episode 3, well, chapter 11.
Maybe he can limp his way back to Tatooine.
Maybe.
And
because I'm pretty sure we will be seeing. We're clearly going to be seeing more Tatooine. So.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more Tatooine.
Maybe in this season.
Yeah.
Especially because Boba Fett for one thing. So. Yeah.
But I would say episode 10 was kind of I called it a filler. It was a really good episode. A filler because it's kind of a bridger, because it's going to bridge the gap between. I think there's going to be more happen in episode 11 than episode 10. We're going to see it's going to keep building. So episode 11 was sort of like a bridger to between 9 and what's going to happen in 11. That's just my opinion.
You said 11, but it's 10. You mistaken 10 for 11.
Yeah, it's going to be chapter 11. Right. Yeah. Chapter 10 is the bridger between chapter 9 and chapter 11.
Right. So we'll see what happens for chapter 11.
Yeah, exactly.
I just like how, because what's funny at the end, because the Razor Crest, it flies, and it's kind of moving funny, flying funny.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it's kind of something like that.
Yeah, he's limping it through space, but he's still got a ways to go to get her to her planet where her husband is.
Yeah, and clearly the Frog Lady, we'll see her again in chapter 11.
Oh yeah, she's gonna be the first thing you see in chapter 11. I mean, they're going to be.
We know what's going to happen, like say in the beginning of chapter 11.
But it's going to be interesting to see
if you get what I mean.
if they make it to that planet
and we see the husband.
Yeah. So
I think we will. So we there's no denying that we will see the Frog Lady's husband.
So here's my question.
Yes.
Mando can't speak their language. He can't understand their language.
He should.
They can. I don't guess they can understand his language.
Oh my God.
So how is her husband, who knows the whereabouts of these Mandalorians, how is he going to tell him that unless he can actually speak his language? Maybe her husband speaks English. Maybe he's bilingual or trilingual or
we'll
quadlingual.
See. We'll see when we see the husband. Just whatever. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But I say, great start to the new season. Chapter 9 was 2 thumbs way up. Chapter 10, 2 thumbs up. Very good.
Yeah, definitely.
Very well done. Looking forward to episode 11.
Yep.
Chapter 11.
As I said.
Whatever that's going to be titled.
I know. And as I said, we know for one thing is that, the Frog Lady is going to be in the next episode, and we know where it's going to start off because at the end of chapter 10, so.
We didn't even talk about the directors. Jon Favreau directed chapter 9.
Yeah, he directed chapter 9, and remember this? This was even before season 1 started, where it was said that Jon Favreau was going to direct a certain episode of season 2.
I had heard episode 2, and you said episode 1. You were right; it was episode 1. Episode 1 of season 2.
I saw it on IMDb as well.
Yeah. So that's the telltale right there. You see it on IMDb, you know it's true. But I had read it in an article somewhere that Jon Favreau had said he was going to direct the second episode of season 2.
Right.
So, anyway.
Boy, he did a great job with this episode. It shows why he wanted to direct it. So
exactly, and the director for chapter 10 was also the director for Ant-Man and Wasp,
and the first Ant-Man film.
And the first Ant-Man film.
That's right. Yeah.
And
he did a good job too.
Peter Reed, I think.
Another director who's directed Marvel films, directing something of Star Wars.
Yeah, is it Peter Reed?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he.
He did good. He did a good job directing this.
The one thing I noted in this episode, and we'll see if anybody wants to comment on this, but if you notice in episode 10, this was different than any other episode.
Leave comments. Yeah.
This was different than any other episode because it was shot in segments. The camera would fade to black. It would fade to black.
And we're talking about chapter 10.
We're talking about chapter 10,
Okay.
yes. And I'll give you a case in point.
I've only seen it once.
When they first leave Tatooine, and he has to fly at sublight speed, he tells the frog lady, he says, "Strap yourself in." He says, "I'm going to go get some sleep." He says,
"Yeah,"
and he says, "It can get a." He says, "If you're going to sit down, I insist you stay strapped in because sublight travel can be a little dicey."
Right.
So he goes back. He goes in. This is when he first catches the kid eating the frog eggs.
Yeah.
And he the frog lady's eggs, and he grabs him, and he takes him and puts him in his cabin where he's going to sleep. Cabin door closes. Screen goes black.
Yeah.
And there's like about a second and a half.
Yeah,
to 2 seconds.
Well, Star Wars has done that before.
And then you hear an alarm going off.
Star Wars has done
that.
I just want to say, Star Wars has done that before, fade to black. If you remember that scene in A New Hope as 3PO, R2, and Luke, they make their way back inside, it fades to black, and we cut straight to 3PO. Thank the maker, this oil bath is going to be good. And it was also in the Rise of Skywalker, where it fades to black is when they're all together again, and fades black, and we cut straight to Tatooine. So
in this, you see a fade to black, and the screen goes black, and then you hear the proximity alert go off, and then comes back. Wow. Mando jumps out of his bunk, goes running up and checking the thing.
That's how it is, and how.
So I like how that was shot.
The setting,
I like how it was shot. It was shot in segments. It was almost like it was done for commercial breaks, but it's not. It's just the passage of time and just different segments. So that was a nice touch. I like that.
It was a nice touch. Yeah, It was.
So anyway, 2 thumbs way up.
2 thumbs way up. And again, that was just the setting. When it fade to black of where it was going, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So
Right.
But so overall, Chapter 9, the Marshal, and Chapter 10, the Passenger, they were really good, and for them being the first 2 episodes of Season 2.
Yes.
Yep. So, and can't wait for Chapter 11, and again, we know for one thing, it'll kind of somewhere pick up, because at the end of Chapter 10, so... Mm-hmm. But anyways, you guys let us know what you think of the first 2 episodes. Again, we give them 2 thumbs up, and until Chapter 11. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
And as you said, you think that he'll have to do some work or something because to repair the ship. Do you think that's what will probably happen?
That's going to be part of it, I think, yeah.
Okay. Something. Well, again, we'll wait and see. We don't know yet. We just have to wait until Chapter 11 comes. So, again, with that being said, we give it 2 thumbs up. We hope you enjoyed our review of the first 2 episodes. And for us starting off Season 2 of The Mandalorian, more reviews coming your way, and with reviewing The Mandalorian, that is. Any last words?
I must be off.
Little Blue says I must be off. For me, we hope you enjoyed our review. Leave comments, etc. And we'll see you guys in the next video/review video. And, as I said, continuing with Season 2 of The Mandalorian. So take care, peace out, and we have spoken.